You know, when most of us hear the word president, our minds immediately jump to the ultimate executive power, right? We picture someone like the US president, making day-to-day heavy-hitting policy decisions straight from the Oval Office. But across the world, and particularly in South Asia, that title holds a completely different yet equally fascinating kind of weight. Welcome to today's Explainer. Today we're diving into the deeply symbolic and ceremonial role of the president in India and Nepal. So instead of an executive ruler, we're going to be looking at an office that was designed from the ground up to be the guardian of a constitution and the ultimate symbol of a nation.
Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the ceremonial head. Second, the electoral mathematics. Third, removing a president. And finally, reliving presidential history.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the ceremonial head replacing the crown. So, I want you to think about this for a second. Why did the framers of the Indian Constitution actively avoid a direct, popular election for their highest office? It kind of seems a bit backwards for the world's largest democracy, doesn't it? Well, during the Constituent Assembly debates, it really boiled down to two highly practical reasons. First off, the sheer administrative nightmare of conducting direct elections for an electorate that massive just wasn't feasible with the resources they had at the time. But second, and honestly more importantly, they were building a parliamentary system. They wanted the real executive power to sit with the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. The president was always intended to be a figurehead.
And nobody summed up this constitutional vision better than Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the chief architect of the Indian Constitution. Listen to this quote. He said, "Under the Constitution, the president occupies the same position as the king under the English Constitution. He is the symbol of the nation." I just think that's a fantastic way to frame it. The president represents the nation, but they don't rule it. Their whole place in the administration is basically like a seal that makes the nation's decisions official. They are this deeply unifying figurehead standing way above the daily political fray. Now shift gears to Nepal for a second, because what is really striking about their history is the sheer speed of its transition. Just look at this timeline. While India replaced British rule, Nepal replaced an internal monarchy, and it happened so fast. In 2007, an interim constitution strips the king of his powers. Fast forward to May 2008, the assembly officially votes to abolish a 247-year-old monarchy. And literally in that same year, Ram Baran Yadav is sworn in as the republic's very first president. Today, they're already on their third president, Ramchandra Podal, who was elected in 2023. It's just a breathtakingly rapid leap from an ancient kingdom to a modern federal democratic republic.
Moving on to Section 2, the electoral mathematics, or how you actually scale a democracy.
Okay, so who actually gets to vote? In India, the president is chosen by a highly specific electoral college, made up exclusively of elected members of parliament, the MPs, and elected members of legislative assemblies, the MLAs, from the states. But what's equally fascinating here is who gets left out of the room. Nominated members of parliament? Completely excluded. Members of state legislative councils? Excluded. It is strictly limited to elected representatives only.
But here is where the math gets absolutely wild. The crucial point here is scale, because not every vote is created equal. Check out these two numbers, 208 versus 7. In an Indian presidential election, the vote of a single MLA from the massively populated state of Uttar Pradesh has a value of 208. Meanwhile, an MLA from the much smaller state of Sikkim has a vote value of just 7. I mean, that perfectly highlights the shocking difference in vote value based entirely on state demographics.
So how on earth do they get those numbers? Through this incredible formula. And I love breaking this down because this brilliant math is exactly how you scale democracy. To find an MLA's vote value, you take the state's total population, and actually, this is based specifically on the 1971 census, fun fact. You divide it by the total elected members in that state's assembly and multiply that by 1/1000th. Then, to get the MP vote value, you take the total value of all those MLA votes combined and divide it by the total number of elected MPs. I know, it looks like a dense high school math problem, but its purpose is absolute genius. It balances power, it ensures uniformity among the various states, and maintains strict parity between the states as a whole and the union government. And Nepal, while they tackle the exact same problem of scale using a similarly clever weighted system. Their electoral college consists of the federal parliament and the 7 provincial assemblies. Based on the ratio of population to seats, federal MPs carry a voting weight of 79, while provincial assembly members have a weight of 48. It's essentially a giant mathematical balancing act to ensure fair representation across the entire geography of the republic.
Which brings us to Section 3, removing a president, the ultimate check.
Now, when we put the Indian system side by side with the US system, the contrasts are really striking. In the US, the grounds for removal are super specific, right? Treason, bribery, or high crimes and misdemeanors. In India, a president can only be removed for a violation of the Constitution, a phrase that is actually left completely undefined in the text. In the US, only the House of Representatives can initiate the process, but in India, either House of Parliament can start it, as long as 1/4 of its members sign the charges. And while a U.S. Senate trial is presided over by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, over in India, the trial is conducted as a quasi-judicial process by whichever house didn't initiate the charges.
But despite all those procedural differences, both systems share one massive, massive hurdle. To actually remove a sitting president, both the Indian Parliament and the U.S. Senate require an incredibly high 2/3 majority vote. It's the ultimate safeguard against frivolous political attacks. And honestly, that is exactly why throughout its entire history, an Indian president has never once been impeached.
All right, let's wrap things up with Section 4, Reliving Presidential History, the Physical Legacy.
So if you ever want to actually see the physical legacy of the Indian presidency in person, you've got to visit the Rashtrapati Bhavan Museum in New Delhi. What's so amazing about this place is the architecture. It's this sprawling 11,000 square meter facility, but here's the kicker. It was brilliantly built almost entirely underground. Why? Because they wanted to completely preserve and protect the heritage structures sitting right above it. Places like the historic stables, the coach house, and the garages. They literally repurposed the past to showcase the present.
And inside? Oh, it's an absolute celebration of India's democratic heritage. We're not just talking traditional object displays here. They use virtual reality, holographic storytelling, the whole shebang. You can walk through exhibits dedicated to the drafting of the Constitution, get right up close to the historic president's car, or, get this, even see an actual stone from the moon. They also have a super detailed model of the INS Vikrant and a real MiG-21 aircraft. It just paints such a vivid picture, really bringing all that ceremonial and historical weight of the office directly to the public.
So we've walked through the math, the Constitution, and the history. And as we finish up, I want to leave you with a thought to chew on. Looking at these deeply calculated systems in India and Nepal, ask yourself, does a nation actually benefit more from having a unifying ceremonial figurehead who stands above politics to symbolize the state, or from a direct executive ruler who wields absolute policy power? It really challenges us to reflect on the balance of power in our own countries and the true, enduring value of democratic symbolism. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking the big questions, and I will see you next time.